Okay, perfect. So last week we were talking about how Rav Chaim Kanievsky did a, what we call a perush. It's a perush, like an understanding on Chag Gadyah. Like a lot of times you look at Chag Gadyah and you just think, oh, it's such a cute little song. Oh, so sweet. You know, you play these little games with it. I told you, like, my family makes all the noises of each animal and the water and the stick, but there really is incredible depth in it. And Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings out all that depth, and he uses like Kabbalah and all these different sources. And what he's really trying to tell you is Chag Gadyah is the history, literally, of the Jewish people. All right. So what I liked about what Rav Chaim said was, it, for me at least, it gave me clarity, because when we always talked about the 4 exiles that the Jewish people went through, he divides it up to give you an understanding. It's like 2 kingdoms in a same time period. And those 2 kingdoms that rule over the Jewish people, one takes over the other one, but it's their, like, their time to shine. Do you know what I mean? It's like their time where you see their impact on the world and you see their impact on the Jewish people. So that's why I used to always wonder, like, to myself, like, I always knew there was this exile of Edom, the exile of Rome, and I always understood that. And then suddenly people pop up and tell you, oh yeah, there's one more, the exile of Yishmael. But what he did was, he really showed you, which is incredible, he showed you how these exiles are really partners. There are like 2 kingdoms who sort of rule at the same time. One goes up and the other one goes down, but they're in that same parameter of time. So it's just very interesting. So so let's remember what they are. So who remembers? Anybody remember anything from last week? And if you do, you get 10 kisses and a hug, because that's a miracle. Okay. Right? It's not easy. Okay, so 4 exiles. Who remembers the first one? Remember, the first time the Jewish people are exiled as a nation. When they go down to Mitzrayim, they're a family developing, but they aren't the nation of Israel that lived in the land of Israel, that had a temple and then is thrown out. That's when we really consider the first exiles. Who remembers the first one?
Was it Bavel?
Yes. Oh, yay. Okay, now who was Bavel's partner?
Edom.
No, close. You were the one who you were the one who helped me remember it. Someone. Who?
Oh.
Kasdim.
Yes, Kasdim or Kasdim. Okay. So
Kasdim.
Bavel and Kasdim are like in that same kind of, like, they're sisters almost. Like, that's, I'm trying to figure out a way to express this. It's almost like, you know, like sister partners, right? But they're enemies. Okay. But they're living in that same time, and they're sort of sharing each other's culture, and they're attacking the Jewish people. So Bavel is the very first one, right? So that's the first exile. Second exile, story of
Esther.
So who's that?
Esther, Persia.
Yes, Persia and its sister enemy, Madai, right? Third one is Mukdam. I didn't even count the 3 right. Mukdam and Greece. And the 4th one is Edom and Yishmael. Okay, and that's the one that you're living in presently. Okay, you're coming almost to the tail end. Okay, we're almost coming to the tail end of the story. All right. So hold on tight. Hold on tight. It's one thing to look back in history. It's another thing to be living in it. Right? Okay. So what did we say Rav Chaim said? He said, if you look at the story of the Chag Gadyah, who is the goat? Who's the Chag Gadyah? Who's the sweet little goat?
Us.
Yes, us, the Jewish people. And who is the father who bought the goat?
Hashem.
Yes. And how much did he pay for it?
2 zuzim.
Yes. And what were the 2 zuzim that he paid with?
The
How did
10
he?
Commandments.
Yes, the 10 Commandments. That's how the Jewish people were acquired to Hashem. We acquired Hashem by saying, yes, we want it. And Hashem acquired us by giving us the 10 Commandments, right? So now we're connected. We're bought. Okay, there's an exchange here. Okay, and now we belong to Hashem, just like this little goat, right, who belonged. And then what happens to this little boy? And now this little goat has his journey. You know, it's very interesting. Like, you know, sometimes people just say, like, have a good day, right? And it's a nice expression. But Rachel Spiro, she was left me a message. It was very cute. She went, I hope all's well on your journey. you know what I mean? It's not just a day, it's an entire journey that we're in, okay? So the journey of this goat, all right? So what's his journey? So now we're going to go through and find all of the enemies, all of these people, all of these kingdoms who exiled the Jewish people, right? Who go after the goat, and then someone goes after them, and someone goes after them, and someone goes after them, and someone goes after them, someone goes after them, until there's one nation that is trying to destroy the Jewish people at the very end of history, and they're the last nation standing. And who ends up conquering that last nation in the story of Gadyah? Who's the last one who conquers? It's Hashem.
Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shechs the Malach HaMaves. Do you want me to put up the Gadyah for a second? Should I put it up, or you guys are okay without me putting the Gadyah up? You're
I
okay?
don't mind.
Okay, you're okay, or you want to see it, Sandy?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. One says yes, one says no. Okay, so I'll go through it, and then if you need it still, Esther, I'll put it up. Okay, so the first thing we have, okay, so let's go to the enemies, okay, and how Rav Chaim of blessed memory, how he like takes the ideas right from the Torah, okay? So he says the very first thing, the first one to bite the goat, right? The first one to bite the goat, we said is Bavel. Who does it represent? Who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, the very first Beis Hamikdash? Who destroyed it? Does anybody remember the name of the general?
Antiochus.
No, close. Like, these are good tries, Esther. They're good tries, and I'm happy you even try. Really am. So who is anybody remember? Who?
Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar. So it says that Nebuchadnezzar, right? He just tries to destroy the Jewish people. So that's interesting, I think. First, he wants the temple, he wants the land, he wants this, he wants that. He recognizes the Jews are very smart. All right, you have to appreciate that we are a very incredible nation. Like, no matter how much they put us down, we rise to the top. And we, Baruch Hashem, have an incredible, intelligent gene pool. Like, we really do. Like, I don't know, we don't stop to appreciate ourselves and who we came from. But if 40% of Nobel Prize winners are Jews, do you have to realize what that means? You're less than 1/3 of 1% of the population. We should be the last people on earth to be Nobel Prize winners. If you would assume all the Chinese and all the people, like the majority of the world's population, right? Those people are in the big numbers, like in China, where it's billion, right? You would assume that they would really take all the prizes. If we're taking the prizes, that means that we have an incredible gene pool, because there's a small part of us, but a lot of us are extremely, extremely intelligent. Okay, you need to appreciate that you're sending your kids, you know, decide the difference between a day in public school and a day in any Jewish school. Do you know that they're working almost twice as hard? I'm being real. It's 2 full curriculums, all right? They're not getting out at 3 o'clock with a 1-hour lunch, 1-hour gym, 1 art class, and you know what I mean, and basket weaving, okay? These are people like they are learning all day till 5:30, starting at 8:30 in the morning. Like, okay, we have to appreciate who we are. Nebuchadnezzar conquers the Jewish people, and he says, you know what, I'm going to do a smart thing. I'm going to get them to assimilate. And the way I'm going to get to assimilate, I want their brain, okay? So I'm going to bring them to Bavel. Who am I going to bring? The upper echelons, right? The people who are the leaders, like the real geniuses. And I am going to convince them to assimilate. I'm going to tell them, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to make life easy. You can eat treif and dance and have parties and do everything you want. Plus, I'll give you money and honor and fame. But guess what? People like Daniel, like these chashuv people, the smartest, the best, Daniel and Azariah and Hananiah and Hananiah, and I always say his name wrong, but I wrote it down, so I'll remember how to say it. Mishael, okay, all of them, right? They do not give in. What did Nebuchadnezzar do? He threw them to the lions, and therefore he is the cat. Okay, and a great Kiddush Hashem happens. They survive, but he is the cat. Okay, so the first person who comes to try to destroy the Jewish people is Nebuchadnezzar, who conquers the temple, and he's represented by a cat because he tries to feed them to the lions. All right, and that's a big moment. You have to appreciate that when they walk out, not eaten alive or burned in a furnace, that's not a small thing, okay? That's a very big, obvious miracle. Okay, so that's the first enemy of the Jewish people, Nebuchadnezzar, who represents Bavel. Now someone comes and gives Bavel, knocks Bavel out of the picture, right? And gives them a good clap on the head. And who is it who comes to bite the cat?
The dog.
Ah, very good. So who is the dog? The dog is Belshazzar, who came from Kasdim. His mother was from Kasdim. And Belshazzar is represented as the dog. And what does he do? As much as these people, Kasdim comes to destroy Bavel, they're always coming against the Jewish people too. You have to appreciate that. So it's like one enemy takes the other enemy down, but that doesn't necessarily give us relief. So you need to remember that. So it's not just like you're still in exile. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, yay, Belshazzar came and Kasdim came and saved the Jewish people. No, they came and they destroyed Nebuchadnezzar, but they're still very cruel to the Jewish people. So what does Belshazzar do? Why is he called the dog? Because he makes a very obvious, loud demonstration to the Jewish people that they're never going to get back to Israel, that they are not holy, that the temple isn't holy, and the Jewish people are nothing. And he feeds his dogs in the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash.
Oy.
Yeah, it was disgusting. Like even when I heard this, first thing I said was "Oy." Okay, so this is what Belshazzar done. So now Belshazzar, okay, he's the dog who eats the cat who ate the goat. All right, you see what's going on? Everybody's biting everybody. So that's your first exile. You're finished. Bavel and Kasdim are gone. Okay, they're out of Bavel's gone. Kasdim is now, at the head of the hill, or on top of the mountain. And now someone is going to come to get them. So who's the next person who comes after the dog? Because somebody who comes who's called the stick, right? Who is the stick? There's a stick that comes to hit the dog. So this is incredible. So who is the stick? The stick is Paras and Madai, okay? Both those kingdoms, it's very interesting, came together as a united force to take down Kasdim and to take down Belshazzar. Why were they called a stick? They actually took the menorah from the temple, took a branch of it, and gonged him over the head and killed him. And that's
Belshazzar?
Yeah, they killed Belshazzar, who, yes, who was it? Koresh and Daryavesh. Okay, Koresh and Daryavesh, they take down Belshazzar, who was the emperor from Kasdim. Okay, now all these people, you realize the Jewish people are never being attacked by little, whatever, some little country in New Huppitzville. Whoever is going against the Jews is always the biggest forces in the world. Okay, we're talking about the world superpowers. All right, so the world superpowers, when they fight with each other, this is what you see. We've seen
Germany.
Yeah. Somehow the Jews are involved. Okay, so we're always in the picture. And this is Rav Chaim Kanievsky going through history, right, to bring us to a certain point of understanding. And we'll see what that point is. Okay, so let's see. So now let's go over it. We have the goat, the cat. Okay, so the cat is Nebuchadnezzar. The dog is Belshazzar. The stick is Koresh and Daryavesh, which were from Paras and Madai. Now, they were two kingdoms that had a very interesting relationship, okay? So sometimes you see that the stupidest thing that you can do is to keep conquering and conquering, because everybody ends up dying and everybody ends up losing, right? Even the winner loses in the end, because you have to walk into a country that you take over that ends up hating you forever, and you have to rebuild it. So Paras and Madai come up with this pact. Very interesting, that Paras says, I will rule X amount of years first, and then you will rule second. And what these countries did, like if you remember learning European history, like everybody married each other. Do you know what I mean? Like you marry
Yeah.
into the family, like even how Achashverosh marries Vashti, who really was the royal blood of Nebuchadnezzar. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of royal blood all mixed up in this story, okay? So Paras and Madai marry within, and now they say, we're gonna have you rule for a little bit and you rule for a little bit. How realistic do you think it was? How
Not
realistic?
realistic at all.
No, because power corrupts. So the minute somebody tastes power, it's almost impossible. Like this is what the Mishnah tells you, like stay away from the government, stay away. They say the government will only love you when they need you. The minute they don't need you, they'll throw you out as fast as possible. So you have to be very careful. It tells you over and over, stay away from this. It will corrupt your mind. And so you see, proof in the pudding. So Paras and Madai end up having this huge fight. Okay, so they're fighting. Once they're fighting with each other, that's why it's so scary in Eretz Yisrael. If the Yidden fight with each other, what does that do? It weakens you and it opens you up for enemies to come in, right? So now Paras and Madai are fighting. Right now they're getting weaker, like this Koresh and Daryavish. This is Daryavish the first. This isn't Esther's son. Okay, this is a different Daryavish who precedes him. Okay, so now they're getting very weak. So the stick is like falling. Who comes to destroy the stick?
The fire.
Fire. Excellent. So who does the Torah tell you is fire? Achashverosh. Achashverosh is considered the fire that comes to take them down. It's very interesting. So now he comes to take them down. And why do they say Achashverosh is the one who, and now he's going to become the emperor of the 127 provinces, right? And he's going to attack the Jews. So what is it about him that represents fire? If you look in the Megillah, it says like when Vashti didn't want to come to him, I believe
He
it
was angry.
yeah, he was so angry, like it said, it burned inside of him, like he was cooking, he was burning, and that was his personality. He could go on fire. That's why Esther's like, I don't want to go to him, because she has this feeling like it's all his mood. In the mood, he'll accept me, and not the mood, off with your head. Do you know what I mean? So he's got this fiery personality. So now Achashverosh is the head of this mess. Okay, so he's within this story. He's a character within this Paras and Madai story. He isn't the royalty. Remember when we said that? Like that's the whole thing with Achashverosh.
The royalty was
Right.
Vashti.
Right. The royalty is through Vashti, but he takes over, like, and he becomes like the common man who
The
reaches to
sergeant in the army.
Right, exactly. But that isn't a new exile. Okay, that's not a new exile. This is Achashverosh's story is connected to the exile of Paras and Madai. It's not the next whole shift. Okay, but someone now comes, right? Now is the fire. Okay, so let's just go quick again. The goat, the cat, the dog. Now you're going to know it for the Seder. The goat, the cat, the dog, right? The stick, the fire. Now we're going to go into the third exile of the Jewish people. We're going into the third exile of the Jewish people. What destroys the fire? Who remembers what can destroy fire?
Water.
Nice.
Excellent, water. Okay, so now the water comes. Which exile is the water? The next exile is called Muktam and Yavan. Okay, so here, Muktam and Yavan, you will hear, this is the story. What storyline is this? The story of Hanukkah. Okay, so now Muktam and Yavan have come. So who is Muktam? Muktam are the Macedonians. Who are they led by? Alexander the Great. Okay, so now Alexander the Great is marching through the world. Hashem blessed him. He really blessed him, okay? And he's marching through the world and he's conquering all these different countries, and he conquers Eretz Yisrael, and he conquers this whole Persian Empire, and now it's the Macedonian Empire. And why is he compared to water? It's very interesting. They come across very like Greek culture, you know, like if you ever look at the statues and the stuff like of the Greek culture, they're very like, they're beautiful. They were very like beautiful looking people. It's interesting. If you look in the story of Noah, right? So it says Yafes, one of his sons was Yafes, right? And Yafet, how would you say it? One of his sons is Yafet or Yafes. So what's that mean? Yafeh, very beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, like there's a certain like art and culture that they have, but the Torah tells you it's extremely immoral. It was a very immoral culture, like sleeping, like that, there's a lot of
Homosexuality.
tons, okay, like they were the ones I think they really started, right? Everybody has their little boy and he takes them to war with him. It's disgusting. And women were extremely downgraded, like women in Greek, civilization were just for having children. It was really sad. You didn't have a relationship with a woman, you had a relationship with a man. So they bring
It's
in
the same as now, except they
Yes.
don't even use the women for kids because they don't even want kids anymore.
Right, exactly right. Okay, so there's like this, so it's like water, because what's water? You drop water and it spreads everywhere. So the immorality was just spreading everywhere. And what's interesting is water always goes to the lowest points. You know what I mean? So it's just like, so that's why Mukdam is considered the water. Okay, so now you've got this Alexander the Great, and then he ends up dying pretty young, really. So he dies young. So Macedonia is attacked by Greece. Okay, so now Yavan has come in. So Yavan is like the whole story of Hanukkah with the Maccabim and all this. And one of the decrees that they did, because who ends up, go back to the Gadyah. So now the water, who attacks the water? Who remembers in the Gadyah? Who attacks the water?
The show.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so the shore, the ox comes and it says he drinks the water. The ox drinks up the water, which means he makes the water disappear, destroyed. Okay, so now Greece and an ox. What is the connection between Greece and an ox? So if you remember in the story, when we talk about, it's interesting, Esther, Antiochus, okay? Antiochus is the wicked king of the Greeks. He makes all these decrees against the Jewish people during the times of the Maccabees, right? What were they? No Torah, no Rosh Chodesh, no bris, like, I can't remember them all, whatever, no kosher, I think, like a whole bunch, like just to really destroy us. One of them was every ox who had a horn, like, so imagine most people are farmers. Every day you wake up in the morning, you got to take out your ox, okay? They made the Jewish people write on the horns of the ox, the Jews have no part in God. It was a decree. So it's like, it's very visual. Like this is all this idea of subliminal seduction. Like when you're looking at these things, right, over and over, it's to really influence the mind. And you have to appreciate that baby bottles were horns. Okay, baby bottles, like they used to feed the babies with the horns, I guess like kind of a chauffeur, and maybe put something on the bottom of it, and then they would drink from those horns. So they made them right from childhood. The Jewish people have no part with God. So what were they trying to indoctrinate us, right? Like they wouldn't, in other words, they wanted you to assimilate or death. Right, that's what it was. It wasn't like, okay, we love you, you can assimilate slowly. This was, we're going to kill you and you're not allowed to do anything Jewish, and this is what it's going to be. So they were considered the ox. Okay, so this is the Greeks who are drinking the water, which is the Macedonians, right? The water who put out the fire, which was Achashverosh, the fire that destroyed the stick, which was Daryavesh and Koresh, right? Who hit the dog, who was Belshazzar, who bit the cat, which was Nebuchadnezzar, who bit the goat, which was us, the Jewish people. Okay, so now you're getting to a very deep side of the story. Okay, so we've already finished. Now, think most of history we've gone through. So we have been able, Baruch Hashem, to sit in our seats, and I wouldn't say comfortably see, but we've seen all this in the past, okay? And now you're going to look at the next and the hardest and the strongest of exiles, and that's the last one. Because who comes to get the ox?
Malach HaMavet.
One more before Malach HaMavet, one more.
Really?
Yeah, one more. Yes, excellent. The shochet. The
נכון.
shochet.
My Abba.
Yeah.
How I forgot that. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, right? So
Yeah.
the shochet now comes. Okay, now what's a shochet? Like, just, we look at it as a shochet, like in terms of Yiddishkeit, so it's like a ritual slaughterer. But let's say the guy who just slaughters. Okay, so a shochet is someone who is a slaughterer, period. Okay, we're not talking ritual kosher slaughter, like we're talking slaughter. Okay, just slaughter. So the Talmud says,
The Sav.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, Esther. The Talmud says there's a nation that's called the slaughterers, and that's Edom, which is Esav, okay, which is Rome. So now if you had to think about the story, so now let's think about the story. And I'm telling you that Edom is called the slaughterer. So why? Okay, Edom is Rome. Tell me, unfortunately, all the slaughtering that they've done.
The 10 הרוגי מלכות.
Beautiful. Okay, so the 10 martyrs, right, that we read about on Tisha B'Av, it's so sad, Rabbi Akiva, all the greatest of the Jewish tzaddikim, and they didn't just slaughter them, they tortured them. Okay, so that's, you need to appreciate that. They slaughtered all the Jews, like the blood flowed in, if you ever watch the burning
They
house.
slaughtered Jesus.
Yeah, they slaughtered everybody. Okay, these are
Yeah.
conquerors. Okay, these people, and now go forward in history. The church is one of the biggest murderers around, right? You either go to Spain and the Inquisition and go to the Crusades and go to the pogroms and then who else did we say comes from Edom? Who else comes from Esav? Amalek. Right? Who did we say Vilna Gaon said Amalek has many tribes, including Germania, okay, which this World War II, want to hear slaughter? 48 million people were killed in World War II. Okay, so we really have to appreciate that these are very murderous people. And Esav was a murderer. He was born red. He enjoyed killing. He was a hunter on many ways, manipulator and physically hunting and killing. All right, so this is the nature of Edom. It's not an easy nature. It's really exactly what we say, okay? It's the slaughterer, all right? And it's interesting. It's very interesting when you think about it. The only one now, if Edom goes down, okay? Now Edom goes down, who's the only nation left standing? Go back to the partnership. Who's the partnership?
Ishmael.
Yishmael. Okay. So who takes?
That's how we are.
Okay, you got it. Like, yes, you're thinking. Okay, that's what I want. So let's think for a second. Let's really think.
Muslims are going after the Christians.
Right. So you got it. Okay, so let's just really think. Okay, because this is like, okay, so you look at a shochet and you think a shochet is really powerful, right? Like you would look at Edom and you'd say the slaughterer, like Chas v'Shalom. You could imagine like the rivers, like Nebuch, Hashem Yisparach should, what's the word? Take revenge on them for all the blood. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Esther. It's not a joke. Like if you even for a second, you could throw up if you really think about it. Okay, millions and millions and millions of people have been shechted by these people. Okay, this isn't what I mean? This is a change of history, what they've done. They've really destroyed. So as much as we like their highways and their bathhouses and all the other stuff that they like to talk about, they really are murderers. Okay, like there's nothing else to say. So now, a shochet, you can imagine, is an incredibly powerful person. Okay, now, right? Now you have to have something stronger than the shochet. What's stronger than the shochet in the Gadyah? Yes, the Malach. So let's just for a second, I just want to recap because I just want to talk about a few little issues that I think are important. So number one, I want you to realize, it's funny, when we talk about Greece today, do you think of Greece as an empire? Okay.
No.
You have to appreciate, you think of Greece as a nebuch, okay?
I
Bankrupt.
think it's
See,
vacation.
that's all I think about. In 2015, they were going to go bankrupt because there was so much corruption in the country. That's what they said. The bankruptcy, I looked it up, the financial crisis was largely the result of structural problems that ignored the loss of tax revenues due to systematic tax evasion. Every single person in the country wasn't paying their taxes, and it's not a big country. They already were like 1.6 billion euros in debt. They were literally going to fold, okay? So when Hashem takes these countries down, boy, does he take them down. And believe me, they're going to be taken down even more, okay? But they go, all right? Now, I want us to look at this exile of Edom before we even invite Yishmael in, because we're coming at the tail end of it. Do you know what I mean? But if you go back in Jewish history, this exile is at least, I mean, it's probably close to 2,000 years, okay, of being under this empire. I know that sounds nuts, but it's true. You would count from the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, it's almost, I think it's 1,954 years. It's something like that. So you're talking, you've been under the slaughterer for 1,954 years. Now this exile, first of all, let's look at it historically. So go back to when Yaakov is running away from Esav. All right. So Yaakov is running away from Esav. Can you imagine Chas v'shalom if Esav would have got that bracha of the Bechor and turned bad? Like the world would be a disaster. If it's a disaster now, it would be only 10 times worse. Okay.
Wouldn't exist.
Right. Wouldn't exist. Everybody would have killed each other, which I really believe they would have. There would have been no Rahmanis, no empathy, no nothing. Would have just been conquer, conquer, eat, you know, it would have been horrible. Okay. So now we're looking like this. Yaakov is never having this dream, and he sees these other empires. Like he's seeing these four Gaulises. He's seeing their angels, like, you know, their spiritual protectors, right? Their guards that Hashem sends them, right? And he sees them going up, but then he sees them coming down. He sees them going up, and then he sees them coming down. But then he sees Esav climbing up and up and up, Edom, I mean, up and up and up and up, and never coming down. Does it feel like that? 100%. Does it feel like that? If you sat for 1,954 years, it would feel like it's never ending. And when something feels like it's never ending, what do you need a lot of?
Emunah.
Yes. You need to hold on with, that's why they say like the blanket's gonna shake, you know what I mean? And only those people who can hold on, and you get it? Like you're living mamish through this. You're living through this. You're seeing this with your own eyes. Like it's an incredible reality. Okay. So that's number one. That's very hard. What's number two that's very hard about Esav is that when Yaakov goes to visit Esav, he davens to Hashem and he says, "Save me from Esav, my brother." What's Rashi say there? Save me from Esav, comma, my brother.
It's more difficult because
Yes.
he is my brother.
Yes, excellent. Because Esav, why is it more difficult? Because Esav can come to you as a murderer, and then Esav can come
When you know your enemy, it's your
Yes,
enemy.
yes. Esav can come as the murderer. He can murder you physically, or he can murder you spiritually. Right? Esav can come like, "I'm your brother. We're the same. We're great." Like, as much as I hate to say this, and I wish Hashem could make it different, the best thing is that the Arabs hate the Jews in Israel. If not, there would be intermarriage. Do you see what I'm saying? And there is. Even with them hating us.
They do. They say we're cousins.
Yeah, they still will play this game, and all these Jewish girls, like there's a whole organization to rescue Jewish women who ends up marrying these Arabs who take them to their village and then totally abuse them and treat them like garbage, right? Like it's just an interesting reality. So for these thousands of years, you've suffered a lot, because not only have you suffered in a physical sense, emotionally and spiritually, intellectually, like in every way, like, are you my enemy? Are you my brother? Like you can go through a Holocaust, right? And 75 years later, the children of people who survived the Holocaust intermarry. The Einiklach intermarry. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, if you stop and you think about that, it's crazy. Okay, it's crazy. Like what they you know what I mean? Like your family went through torture, destruction, and blah, 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 on the hands of very cultural non-Jews. Like it wasn't like, the Zulus came up to try to kill us, like cultural non-Jews, and even Jewish people who were intermarried were pulled and taken into the concentration camp. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And yet you will totally forget, because that's just human nature. Right? You just get used to what it is. And like, you can tell me all the bubba mices you want, but that's not my story. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's so hard for us. So like the fact that we could hang on is nothing less than a miracle, right? I look at this, I can't get over it. Like if you really study the story, right, to appreciate, what's going on here, this is really, really incredible. Okay, so let me just see what else I want to tell you. Wait a second. Okay, yeah, we said that about the greatest enemy. Okay, so now
And Gail, can you go back to the Malach HaMavet?
we're starting him now. We're just starting him.
Oh, okay.
I just turning the page to say the Malach HaMaves. Okay, so now the Malach HaMaves is Yishmael. Somehow, think it's so funny. The Malach HaMaves is more powerful than the slaughterer. So let's explain. Because one thing about that slaughterer, he's very happy to slaughter everyone else, but he ain't worried. He does not want to slaughter himself. All right? A person who is the shochet never turns around and says, okay, I'll stick the knife in me. The Malach HaMaves is all death. Okay? The Malach HaMaves is all death. He's just the angel of death. He actually looks at death as a martyr. Do you know what I mean? The shochet will kill the other person for his gain, for his power, for his wealth, for his needs. The Malach HaMaves, for him, death is admirable. You know what I mean? And that's why this is a very, 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 very difficult enemy, because there's no game to play here. He's willing to kill himself. He's willing to kill his wife. He's willing to raise his children to die. He's willing to kill anybody, right? Death is the glory by him, okay? Death is glory. And the more people who die because he died, the greater it is. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
That's what we're going through now.
Right. You see, this is what
all the
yeah,
terror.
exactly. All these terrors. A slaughterer is not willing to die. He's willing to kill you. The idea is to kill you, and then I get to be boss and take what you have. But this is something different. This is, I'm willing to die as long as you die. If you die and I die, who cares? Because the goal was to kill you. It's such, who could only do this? Only Yishmael. Why? Because if you look in the Torah, Yishmael is a para Adam, a completely wild man. So when you look in the not gematria, what's it called? When you look at, when you have the way you
when you exchange the
verbs
words
and the this, when you say, what is that called? The way you use verbs and nouns, and there's it's a bit one word that says dikduk, that's it. Oh, thank you so much, Esther. Okay, so what's dikduk in English? Grammar. Okay. Whoosh. Baruch Hashem. So here's the story. So think. It's very important. So if you look in the Torah and the way we speak in in Hebrew, we never would say, we say yeled, boy, and then we talk about his action, tov or ra. Okay, which you should know was a great psychological principle. Okay, so it's interesting, in psychology, they'll tell you, don't label people. Do you know what I mean? You can label the action, which you can say to the person, I respect you, you're a good boy, you're a boy, and a boy is a good thing, right? But sometimes your action is ra or tov, right? But when Hashem described Yishmael, he didn't say he was called an Adam Pera, like a man who's wild. No, he called him wild.
Pere Adam.
Yes, and sometimes he's a man. Or some of the rabbis say wild against men. Para Adam.
I read in Chaim Atal.
Yeah.
It says Adam is only the Am Yisrael are Adam.
Yeah.
The rest of the world are not.
Yeah. So para, because then para Adam, okay? So he is considered completely wild, okay? And in his view, again, he doesn't have what most people have is an instinct to live. He would rather die. Do you know what I mean? Because the reward for his death is greater than what he looks at as the reward of living. Do you see what I mean? And because of that, that is going to be an extremely, extremely difficult person to fight against, because he has also no mercy. Like there's no mercy for his children, no mercy for anyone. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if, this is why Israel, Chalilah v'chas, fears if Iran got a nuclear weapon, because the Iranians who run the country, the muftas or whatever, like, do you know what I'm saying? To them, it's a glorious ending. And then, who knows what is supposed to happen. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So this is just like, if anyone, like, you don't have a chance against them. Do you see, like, if you're looking at a narcissistic society, right? A very spoiled narcissistic society versus a society that's willing to die for their cause, it's not a simple story, right? It's not a simple story. Okay. I did want to say one thing. Okay, let me finish with this and then I'll go back. So generally speaking, the Medrash tells you, generally speaking, if you think about nations and the concept of conquering another nation, usually do it for only two reasons, okay? So what would be the two reasons? Like, why was Edom marching through the world and wanting to conquer? Power and greed, okay? Power and greed. Like, it's really, that's what moves people to do harm to other people. I want what you have. I want your wealth. I want you this, and I want you to listen to me. I want to be the boss. Okay. So this is what's very unusual with the Arabs. It isn't this power and greed thing. I'm sure it's part of it, but the truth is they have a lot of power. They wield over the world because of the oil, right? And they have a lot of money because of the oil. Do you know what I mean? But the Torah tells you something very interesting. Their hands will be in everyone's pocket and everyone's hand be in their pocket. There's a very interesting relationship with this oil business. There is a very interesting relationship, right? We need them for the oil, but they need us to need the oil, and they need our technology. Look, it's an interesting, like, there's a vulnerability here, but if they don't care for the money, and they don't care for the power, they just care for the killing. Do you know what I mean? They just care for, like, we live for the bigger cause. Do you see what I'm saying? That can out motivate. Do you know what I mean? It could out motivate them. So that's something that something that you can see, right? Okay. So jihad is their motivation, right? And that is train your children to blow themselves up. Right? That's what it is. Train everyone to kill, right? There's no such thing. All right. So that's the scary part about them. All right. And really, it's so sad, because even the religious principle part of them is wild. It's like totally, and it's like, so it's a wild idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, kill yourself, lose this world, wait for this. You know what I mean? It's like totally the antithesis of everything that Hashem says. You have to earn it by living in this world, by doing what's right. We believe in a God that's loving and just. We believe in a God that accepts the entire world. Like, we don't force anyone to do anything. We just tell you, here is God, and here is what God says would make this a beautiful planet. If everyone would keep the 7 Noahide laws, right? And we, with the Jewish people, would keep our 613, what a wonderful world, okay? This would be, all right? That's what we're saying, okay? And none of it is done by force. So we have to be, we have to realize, like, it's, okay, so wait, let's just for a second, I did want to say one other thing too. Yeah, I did want to tell you with Edom, like, how much you see today with Ukraine, like this whole idea of Russia just walking into a country, like you haven't seen something like that in so long, and how fake everyone is here. Like everyone is such a fake, it's disgusting. Like everybody is just like letting everybody else be a pawn that gets knocked off on the chessboard. That's all that's going on here. Like, as America will only give them just enough, but never enough to win. Like never enough to really win. And you could see how foolish, like Russia, like the idea of doing this is so stupid, because all they've done is destroyed the entire country, right? So even if, let's say, the Ukrainians gave up, you have to build that entire country from scratch again. Do you know what I mean? Like it's been flattened pretty much. You know, millions of people die during these terrible things. And guess what? The Ukrainians never forget. That's what you see with all these nations. Everyone's nation that they conquer, the other nation never forgets. And hundreds of years back, they stab you in the back again too. You know what I mean? Like it's just like an endless, quagmire. So it's just interesting for us to understand. And then when it comes to Yishmael, this idea of letting, everybody die for the sake of this cause, like that's why you'll see the terrorists will be in very populated areas. Right? They'll shoot the rockets from schools. They'll shoot the rockets from hospitals. They'll shoot them. Why? Because then when Israel shoots back, yay, all these little sacrifices get blown up. And Israel looks like the most disgusting people on earth because here we are shooting schools and hospitals. This is what it means by a para Adam. Do you see what I'm saying? It's almost impossible to fight against this. Right? Okay, fine. Now, I do want you to know, like I was thinking about this, like it's scary to see, because when you look at the language, like a lot of what he says, which is very important for us to understand, is always like sourced in the Torah. So if you look at the end of Chayei Sarah, before, it's very interesting, Chayei Sarah and Toldos. Okay, so here they're lined up at the end. All right. So if you look at the end of the Parsha of Chayei Sarah, it talks about Yishmael. It actually talks about Yishmael, and it has this sentence that Yishmael Nafal, like the princes of Yishmael, Nafal, like Nafal means like fell, which is an interesting word, but it also means lives among all of his brothers, which is exactly what's going on right now. Okay, the Arabs are slowly taking over everywhere, like Germany and France, and even far away places like Australia has a problem with them. Everybody has a problem with them. Like they're, London, they populate, they take over, they do not assimilate, right? And they end up putting up their own Sharia law and all this kind of stuff. It's like they're falling on everybody. Do you know what I'm saying? Like everybody's like, can we get you out of here? And you can't. They're just falling on top of everyone. All right? So in the end, they will, it's so interesting because I always kind of thought it would be China, but it's not. It's going to be Yishmael. Do you know what I mean? Like I always kind of thought it was China. There's something going on here that they're like very like slowly but surely, right? Do you see it? Like kind of taking over most of Western civilization. Like they're populating all those areas. So you have like places, let's say Detroit has the highest level of Muslims, right? So what's her name? Omar, I don't know what her second name is. She drives me crazy. Omar, who's like a tremendous anti-Semite. Do you know what I'm talking about? She wears like a thing on her head or whatever. She's like one of Talib. Omar, no, Talib is the other one. Is her name Omar Talib? Or Talib is the other one who's also a big anti-Semite. But they're very verbally, like out loud, very, very verbal anti-Semites. And they really aren't doing a good job. It's not the places that they're running are flourishing or there isn't crime. They're terrible, okay? They have very, a lot of rhetoric. They're very loud. They're very vicious in the way they speak. They want to defund the police. Like they're very foolish, all right? Crime is rising wherever they are. And guess what? They keep getting reelected over and over and over again. Why? Because the population is Muslim. And when they stand up and they say, we hate Israel and don't give any money to Israel and Israel's apartheid and all this, they're very supported. Do you see what I mean? So he's saying in this Chag Gadyah, this Malach HaMaves is Yishmael, who is the para Adam, who has wherewithal, do you know what I mean? Because of his wild rhetoric and his like doesn't see the big picture and only lives for death, right? that he would be the one who could take down the mighty Edom, that we have, right? That the mighty Edom could crumble with him. But what do we see in the end? In the end, doesn't matter where Yishmael is. He will nafal. He will end up falling himself. And who will finally destroy him? Who is the power that destroys even the most powerful evil?
Those little-
Hashem. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky, like this is not going to be such an easy part that I'm going to tell you right now, okay? And I'm embarrassed to say it, okay? But I'm going to say it anyway, okay? But I am very embarrassed. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky, like this, I'm going to be real. While he was alive, whoever went to him, whoever came to him for an eitzah, like let's say somebody would come, this story of this rabbi, great rabbi, very, dynamic. He came to Rav Chaim and he said to him, look, I really want to ask you a shaila because I live in Brooklyn, but I can have a shtella, I can get a job in Lakewood. So I would like to move to Lakewood. So Rav Chaim made this face to him. He said, why would you ever move to, why to Lakewood? So he said, what do you mean? So there's an expression out there that Lakewood is called Ir HaKodesh. Does anybody know that? That's what people refer to Lakewood. It's like such an incredible place. Like I don't live there, but I know people live there, and my sons lived there for a while, and it's like unbelievable. Like you can get it's like a little mini Eretz Yisrael. That's what it feels like. It's like mini Eretz Yisrael, but with much more comfort. You know what I mean? Like you don't have small houses and nothing's like, and not this, the traffic is probably the same, but like there's a lot more conveniences, right? Everybody speaks English, blah, blah, blah. They call it Ir HaKodesh because people sit and learn. There's like 5,000 Jews in this concentrated area or more. You know what I mean? 5,000 just learning in the yeshiva, I mean to say, maybe close to 7 really. Do you know what I mean? Besides the whole area. So Rav Chaim, when this man said that because I'm thinking of moving to Lakewood, Ir HaKodesh, what do you think Rav Chaim did? He couldn't believe it. He almost fainted. How could you say that? How could you say that there's any other place but Eretz Yisrael that's Ir HaKodesh?
Nachon.
That's what he said. You're making a huge mistake. He said, don't you see what's going on? Right? The safest place in the world right now is Eretz Yisrael. That's the only place. And, so this is hard for me to say it. I'm just repeating what I heard. Okay. So don't shoot the messenger. So I'm just repeating what I heard. So really, this is the safest place. Like really, if you're looking at the story, he's saying, don't you see where we're headed? We're going to have to go home. Right. If Ches v'Shalom Edom falls, that means we all lived here. This is Edom. Okay. Here's where we are. Right. So it's just interesting. Like, he had very strong feelings towards people moving to Eretz Yisrael. And he would say, if a person will do it, you'll get a special shmira, you get a special protection, and, try not to avoid it. So I'm not saying that tomorrow morning we're all getting on a plane, but what he was trying to say is think smart. That's what he was trying to say. He's trying to say think smart. So that's all. I'm not saying, like for all of us, I give us all a bracha and you should give me one. We should all be zoichet to get there. Like it's a schus. We should be zoichet to be able to move to Eretz Yisrael. I mean it. Like I really wish I had the strength and the courage, you know what I mean? And to do it. I really do. But that's what I'm saying. Or better yet, let Hashem just take us, okay, on the wings of eagles and forget the rest of the sad story of Gadyah. Okay? Like just get us over here. And you know what? Like I told you, one thing that gave me comfort, I know this sounds so crazy, but what I was thinking about how the Berlin Wall fell. The Berlin Wall fell
Nachon.
in 1989. It fell.
Nobody would dream.
No one would dream it. You don't understand. This was communist.
Communism will fall.
Yes, Russia held on to that side. Okay, I think it was the east, right? It was east, and they hung onto it, right? And there was like protests going on, and people wanted to go to the west, and they didn't want to have to go through so much paperwork. Hashem put in the mouth. It does not make any sense. Whoever it was, the chancellor, I don't know who it was, but it was like an accident. He said they were going to ease it up, like tiny little nothings, like make it like, okay, you didn't have to wait 3 months for your passport. You'd have to wait 2 months and 18 days. That's what he was supposed to say. But instead, it was like a blooper. He instead said, no, we're going to let you just come through. It's going to be so easy. You can just pass through. And then thousands of people showed up to walk across. and he was waiting for his superiors or someone to say something. Nobody said something. It was too late. And the wall came down. The people who were all standing there started pulling off pieces from the wall to make it look like, we're all liberated, and people were bawling and crying, and it was like this huge piece of history, and that's how it happened. And so it does daven, like we hear this and you're thinking all these like not very pleasant thoughts when you listen to this, but maybe we can have a muna bitachon, like Hashem can do anything. That's what the end of this is. The end of this is we got to hold on tight. We got to hold on. Like we have to be like, I don't think we appreciate the merit of those Jewish women in Egypt. Like if you stop in a second and you think about it, like imagine like, your babies are being slaughtered. It's like disgusting. It's like Rabbi Tauber's mother who was getting pregnant through the Holocaust. Like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, are you crazy? But it's like these people, like, that's it. They said, no, I see the bigger picture. The detail right now of this is not easy. And this is Hashem calling me, let me get through this. But at the end, there is the light. Do you know what I'm saying? So even though you're listening to this Chag Gadyah, and it daven like that Mashiach should come, 100%. But just that you're in that Seder and still there and still believing, you're making another chop, like we said on Shabbos, right? There's a big tree standing in the way and we've got to chop it down. So at least you're making another chop. But Hashem is telling you, like he is sending us shlichim. It's not that he's not sending us messages or Vayikra not calling out to us. The world is changing and it's changing dramatically. We can't pretend that it's not. And Corona wasn't just a little, okay, it's over. It's not really over. It damaged so much of the world and it's brought in a whole different craziness. And what's going on morally in the world is crazy. And the corruption is crazy and banks, like there's so much going on here that maybe Edom is coming to a place where it's very, very vulnerable, right? Maybe Hashem was just saying like, think, just wake up, think a little bit, think about doing tshuva, think about being the better person, think about what redemption is, think about redeeming yourself and helping other people redeem themselves. Like open your heart, ask for mercy, ask for this, ask for freedom. Let's get out of this mess. Do you know what I mean? And if people have possibilities to, make bigger plans, think about them really sincerely. Do you know what I mean? Think about them really sincerely because it's not a joke. Do you know what I mean? It's not a joke. This is a story that is very real and it's very real right here and right now. Okay. So I think that was the end of the Chag Gadyah. They said, I was going to read Berlin Wall in 1989. The fall was partially because of bureaucratic mistake. It's an unbelievable story. Okay, let me see if there was anything else. I think that was it, really.
Gail, can you go back to the beginning? Because obviously I missed last week, but who wrote Chag Gadyah when? And
Okay, so Chag Gadyah.
Rav Kanievsky is.
Chag Gadyah. Rav Kanievsky is a contemporary rabbi.
Right.
Who wrote it? No one knows. It was the Chida who, I think it's the Chida. I can go back to get you exactly the name of the rabbi, but I believe it was the Chida who found it written on a piece of parchment in his shul. And he read it and he realized the Chida you can Google and see when he is, but it's definitely after the time of Kabbalah, and he realized that it was a very Kabbalistic work. Okay, probably a couple hundred or something like that, hundreds of years ago, but not thousands. Okay, so what's very interesting about that, it could be like Hashem's, giving everybody a little insight.
1724.
Yeah. Okay. So it's Hashem giving some insight to help us, right? That makes sense.
So he wrote that, and Rav Kanievsky.
He did not write it. He found it.
No, the Chida. Oh,
Yeah,
the Chida
yeah.
found it.
Found it. They don't know who wrote it.
Okay, and Rav Kanievsky
Wrote a Peirush on it. So Rav Kanievsky
Right.
just passed away, I think, like a year ago. Mamish just a year.
Yeah.
Right? So that's who wrote the Peirush on it. And that was his explanation. And now it makes sense why he was very, like, anyone who came to him, that's what he would always say to them. You have to move to Israel. You have to move to Israel. Right? But it's, definitely not so simple to hear that. Like, it's just not so simple. But right
It's
now,
saying, I'm reading on Google, it says that a goy wrote it.
no, then that could be, a goy did not write it.
של גוי, ולומר ב100% שזה מחבר יהודי תלמיד. No, okay, they just
No,
guess it.
for sure not, for sure not.
Yes.
No, for sure not. I think they don't know, but as far as I understood, they don't know who wrote it. But anyway, it's an outstanding reality, like you can see. And in Mirz Hashem, like I said, like, we could change, you have to know that there's always like leeways and ways to, like, tshuva and tefillah and tzedakah can marvinus ro hagzera. Like, we can always change these realities and these destinies, but it's not so simple, right? It would take
Yeah, and
right?
the חידה swear him, קילל אותו. How dare you say such a